And we also have another session previous to this that we recorded, so I'll make sure you get that as well. Okay.
Yeah, me too, Quilly, me too.
Yes, I'll make sure everybody gets a copy.
A quick question. The grades are flexible. You can go back at any time and change any grades. When do they
Correct.
get final? Only when you publish them in a final grading report, right? At some stage they will be final, right?
When you submit the grades to Banner using My Rider, that's when they are considered the final grade. And so if you need to change at that point, it requires whatever the process the registrar requires you to complete to change those grades. Yes, but anything that you're working with here in Canvas can be changed at any time.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So what we're going to talk about now is how you enter grades really quickly. And in Canvas, when you see a dash, that means a student has not been graded yet. When you see an icon that looks similar to what you see here, this little piece of paper, it means the student has submitted the work, but you have not yet graded that work, okay? So when you see those little icons, that's what they mean. If I wanted to give a score to a student, I can click right in that cell for that student, and if you look, you can see that the cursor is there and it's available to me, and I can just type in a score manually if I need to. There's also a little arrow that appears to the far right. And when I click that, it opens up what Canvas calls the grade detail tray. And it gives me some additional options. I can still manually plug that score in. So if I say, oops, that was supposed to be an 85, I can change that right here. And I can also apply a status. So if a student submitted something late, I can flag this and say this was late by 0 days. If this particular student is excused from this particular assignment, I can also select the excused. Missing will show up automatically if they have not submitted by the due date you specify in Canvas. And again, if Canvas has applied a late submission or a missing submission, for example, you will have students who email you work instead of coming in and submitting it here in Canvas. If you want to come in and plug in that score manually and remove the late or the missing status that Canvas has applied, you can do that as well. So if that student was flagged as missing, but they had emailed you the work, you come in, you give the score, I can change that to none so that it no longer reflects as being late or missing for that particular student. So it works both ways. You can apply the status if you like, or you can remove it if you need to. You also have the ability to give text-based feedback by typing in the comments area at the bottom of the grade detail tray. When I hit submit, it saves that comment for me and begins the comment trail that a student can read and respond to as needed when they're reviewing their own grades. When you're working in the grade detail tray, the student you're working with is listed at the top. If I click the arrow, I can cycle through my students. So you can move to the next student in the list very easily from this grade detail tray. I can also switch to other assignments. So if I say, okay, I'm done grading the Module 1 assignment, I want to look at the quiz now, I can do that by selecting the arrows for the assignment itself. So you can navigate through the different students as well as through the different assignments from right within this grade detail tray. To close this screen, I simply click the X at the top left corner, and it closes the grade detail tray for me. Okay. Questions about entering grades manually here from the gradebook view?
Yeah, actually, I do have a question regarding that. Sometimes I found that the scores seem to be entered automatically, and I have sometimes I have to enter it myself, and I just did it, but I did not really figure out as to why, how. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Are these for quizzes or for assignments? If you build for assignments, they should never populate automatically for assignments.
Assignments, or for one class, it seems that all the weights are already displayed in the spreadsheet. And I did not enter the scores there. The scores automatically appeared there. And for some of the assignments that I need to come in here and then manually enter.
Yeah, we'd have to look at that because for assignments, the grade should only appear if you enter it manually here or if you're working in the speed grader. So for example, if I go to the speed grader for this assignment, it gives me a different view of student submissions. So if they have actually submitted a document, a spreadsheet, PowerPoint slides, you know, a PDF, I would be able to preview it here in this window. I can also annotate directly on this submission by using the options here in the top left. And I can also grade just like I did in the grade book. So if I wanted to assign a score, if I do it here, it automatically adds it to the grade book as well.
Okay. I went to the assignment, then there's a speed grade there, and I did it there. And then it automatically appeared in the...
Correct. So if you grade here, it automatically goes to the grade book. If you grade in the grade book, if you've manually entered a score there, when you view it here in Speed Grader, you would see that here as well. Okay. So anything you do in one place is automatically reflected and shown in the other.
Yeah, actually, for all the assignments, you can do the speed grade.
Yes.
Right? And then, so that saves it. So that once you've done that, then they are all automatic.
Yes. And I like using Speed Grader when you require that they upload and submit because you're able to preview right here in this window. You don't have to download separately and open and do the grading and come back in. You can do it all right here within one screen.
Okay. No, thank you.
So just to clarify, speed grading, the value of speed grading is what?
Say that again, I didn't.
What is the value of speed grading? Why would I?
That you are able to see the submission for students who have uploaded files like Word documents, PowerPoint presentations, spreadsheets, PDF files, even images. If you've required this to submit images, you're able to preview and view those documents right here in the Canvas window. I do not have to separately download this file and open it in Word to review it and grade it. I can also annotate directly on the document using the tools available at the top of the doc view window, as well as give the scores here and provide feedback as well. So everything that I can do in the gradebook, I'm able to do from the speed grader with the added benefit of viewing the document directly and being able to annotate.
Okay. But I do have to manually grade the assignment.
Yes.
Okay. I can't set up a table which automatically grades the assignment.
No. Okay. Other questions maybe about the speed grader? And then I'm going to go back into the grade book.
When you put the grade here, but you don't put any comments, you don't need to put submit.
No, the only time you have to hit submit is if you provide comments.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Going to go back to the gradebook by clicking that icon in the top left. And you'll see that the student I graded in the speed grader, their score is now showing up and reflecting here as well. Okay. Okay. So what we're going to talk about next are the settings that are available for the gradebook. And the settings are accessible in the top right corner. And it looks like a little gear icon. And when I click that gear icon, I get a pop-up window that shows me two things. I have two tabs. The first tab is late policies. That's a new feature with this new gradebook we got in January. And we have grade posting policy. Now, grade posting policy is not a new feature. It is just a new name. If you use the mute feature that was available in the gradebook previously to mute assignments while you're grading them so that it doesn't trigger the notifications and you can kind of grade in peace so that you're not being bothered by students asking you for updates as you're trying to work through that assignment. It was called mute in the previous version of the grade book. And so you would mute a column when you were working on the grading, and then when you were done, you would unmute. Well, that is now called setting a grade posting policy. So it's not a new feature, they've just changed what it's called. I'm going to start with the late policy. So Alice, you asked if Canvas would automatically apply a grade for late or missing submissions. You can set that up to happen here on the late policy tab. So if you want to automatically apply maybe a 0 for any student who has not submitted an assignment by a particular due date, you want to select the automatically apply grade for missing submissions, but we don't want to give them 100, we want to give them a 0. So if they have not turned the assignment in by the due date that you specified in Canvas, Canvas will automatically apply that 0 to that student submission. That might help students get work in. If they see that 0 and see how it is affecting their overall grade, maybe that will motivate them to hurriedly get those missing submissions in. You could also say, instead of a 0, give them a 50 if you want to cut them a break. But you really want to say, this is the grade that I want to show up automatically for any missing submission. What that also helps you do is you don't have to remember to go back in and plug those 0s in at the end of the semester. Because what you may not have noticed is if you forget to put a grade in, it doesn't count against the student. So Canvas only penalizes the student when you put that 0 in. So if you forget to put those 0s in and a student just has the dash, Canvas will only calculate their grade based on the work they've done. So they look like they've got this really great grade, but it's because those 3 zeros have not been factored in. So if you automatically apply that 0 for missing submissions, it kind of helps save you a little bit of that work on the back end. And it also helps students from seeing a false inflated grade that makes them think Canvas dropped their grade when you go back in later to put the 0s where the 0s belong.
Riley, that's an excellent feature and a good addition, because I know I fall into that sometimes with the discussion forums, and a lot of times students don't do this, so then I got to go in and change it to 0, and I get
then
that,
all of a sudden they say, Canvas dropped my grade.
Yeah, and especially if you don't follow up through that until you get like a few weeks into the semester, then all of a sudden they've gone from like a 90-something to like a 70-something.
Exactly.
Like, hey, what happened?
Exactly.
So that's excellent.
If you turn that on, it takes that work out of your hands.
Will do.
Okay.
Can I ask a question related to that?
Sure.
So I usually default my entire grade book to manual posting. So if I also click automatically apply grades, are the students going to be able to see it, or I still have to release them? Okay.
Still have to release them. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So the second option that you see here on the late policy tab is the ability to apply deductions to late submissions. So in addition to be able to automatically apply a 0 to something that's missing, you can automatically apply deductions to anything that's late. This is a fun one. How much you want to make students dance or not dance is really up to you. But if you choose to automatically apply a deduction, you can determine what's the percentage that their grade is going to drop, either by day, or here's the fun one, by hour.
Clock's ticking.
I don't know anybody who actually uses this hour one. Most people use the day, but it is pretty amusing to see how quickly you can motivate a student to turn something in if they see their grade dropping by a certain percentage every hour that it's late.
If anybody here decides to do the hour, please let us know how that works, because we're very anxious to see the outcome.
Yeah. So what we would do here is we would simply say this grade is going to drop by 5% every day that the submission is late, so that it will automatically apply that percentage. So if you grade the student work, it automatically will take the late deduction off once you've plugged that score in. So you can set those late. You don't have to use them at all. If you choose not to, you just leave those check boxes off. But if you are going to use them, feel free to turn them on and set the percentages that work for you. When you set this late deduction, you can also say the lowest possible grade is a 65. So it'll drop their score until it gets to the 65, and that will be the lowest score that they could earn for that particular assignment. So the second tab is this grade posting policy, or what we call it, the mute and unmute feature, what it's called now. If you set the grade posting policy on this tab, you're setting it for your entire gradebook. So you're applying this setting to every single assignment that you've created and published, and it exists in your gradebook. What the default is that it's set to automatically post grades. What that means is students will be able to see scores as soon as they are entered, okay? So if you are grading a particular assignment, as soon as you plug a student's score in, notifications that Canvas sends to students will go out automatically. They'll get the notification that they've got a new grade. They'll get the information that this assignment has been scored. But if you would prefer that all assignments are hidden or grades are hidden by default, and that you post them when you're ready for students to see them, then you want to select the option to manually post grades. And what this does is it will turn off notifications for all assignments in the gradebook so that they don't get notifications about grade changes, they don't get notifications about submission comments, curving assignment scores. None of that will be sent out to them automatically. Canvas kind of holds it for you, and then when you choose to post the grades, it will then send out all of those notifications en masse to students at once. If you would prefer not to apply this to every single assignment in your gradebook, you can do it on an assignment by assignment basis. It really is up to you. But if you are going to set this, you want to set this at the start of the semester before you start grading anything. So once you've got all your assignments created and into the gradebook, then you want to come in and turn this setting on so that it is automatically on at the start of the semester before you start doing any grading. Any questions about that? Okay, I'm going to leave this to automatically for right now, and I'm going to update, and I'm going to show you how you would do this on an assignment by assignment basis. So I mentioned before, if you run your mouse over any of those assignment columns in your gradebook, you have that column of dots. When you click that column of dots, the very last option at the bottom of the pop-up menu is grade posting policy. So it's the same option we just saw, except you're able to set it at the assignment level. So if I've left it open for everything else, but I decide for this particular assignment, I want to set it to manual, I simply select manually and hit save. And so the word manual now appears underneath that column. So I know that this particular assignment column is now muted. I can grade here without it triggering the notifications to students. And so, for example, I'll plug some scores in. And I'm really going to blow my gradebook up when I do this, and I'll explain in a second. Okay. As I started grading, you'll notice that this little icon, this I with the dash through it, appeared for that particular column. What it's telling me at a view is that there are scores that are here that are not visible right now to students. Okay, so it's letting me know these scores are in, but right now they're hidden from students because it's set to manual. In order to make them available to students, I go back into that options menu, and I now have the option to post grades. And so this is how you release the grades for student view when you're working with that muting and unmuting feature that's available with the grade posting policy. When I say post grades, it'll show me this little menu. It lets me know that right now there are 4 grades that are hidden, and I can either choose to post the grades for everyone. But since I've got 2 students I haven't graded yet, I don't want to choose that option. I just want to choose graded. I only want to release the scores to the students that I've graded yet. And once I click post, the little wheel spins, the eye disappears, So it lets me know that the grades that are in this column are visible to the students that have been graded. Any questions about that? And I will just mention that I blew my gradebook up. So you'll see that this percentage shows really strangely high percentages. This is one of the things that you want to check for when you're working with your gradebook. I blew it up because this quiz says it's out of 0 points, but then I assigned them points out of 100. So I kind of blew it up in that manner. And if you've ever seen your gradebook out of whack like that, that's one of the first things you look for. Did I give a score that doesn't match the out of grade that was assigned to that particular assignment? And the way I fix that is I just go in and I change that to out of 100, and it will adjust the gradebook back to where it needs to be. So if you ever see that, don't panic. It is an easy fix. Questions about the grade posting policy and what automatically means, what manually means, and how you post?
So this you said at the beginning, usually, when you're describing the subject.
Yeah, so if you don't want students to be able to see scores immediately when you're posting, then at the very beginning, before the course starts, before you start grading, you want to set it at the course level, and you want to choose manually post grades in the settings and update. If you'd rather do it on a assignment by assignment basis, you can leave that set to automatically. And then for each assignment, you would go in and set the policy when you're ready to start working with the grades. So there's no right or wrong. It just depends on how you prefer to work with the gradebook.
Okay.
Okay, other questions about that?
You always have to grade every assignment. The system doesn't have any way of, you can input the answers into the system like mathematical answers. The system can check them and grade automatically.
If you
have that capability.
if you create quizzes in Canvas using the quizzes tool, and you can create quizzes for short quizzes or full exams, if you create a quiz, you can set it up so that those quizzes are automatically graded, because as you're creating the questions that you're adding to the quiz, you are specifying what the right answers to those questions are. And for those items only, Canvas will automatically grade it. But for assignments, you will always be required to manually grade those assignments.
Yes.
On that feature, this is Ed, hi, sorry. What type of questions, like fill in the blanks? I mean, obviously spelling and things like that would be very difficult, you know.
Yeah, so when you're creating quizzes and you're adding questions, I'm just going to edit this really quickly to show you the different question types that are available. So from the drop down are the different types of questions you can create. And so yes, multiple choice, true or false, those will score, you know, with no issues. When you get to things like fill in the blank, you might see case issues, you know, if they entered it in all capitals, but your answer was in lowercase, or if they spelled it wrong. In that case, if Canvas marks it wrong, you still have the ability as the instructor to give them full credit when you review, if you determine that it really was a correct answer, it was just misspelled.
And we have a time delay between when Canvas grades it to review it, to manually change the grade before it gets posted?
If you don't want them to see a grade before you've had time to review, then you would make sure for this particular assignment it was set to manually, so that way they don't see any grade until you've reviewed and posted.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
And if you have a team exercise, is there any way of grading the team and then all the members of the team get automatically graded? Is that a facility?
Say that again.
If you have a team exercise and you have your students assigned in teams,
Okay.
and by rating a team, do all the team members get rated automatically?
Yeah, so when you're creating that assignment, and I'll just pick one of these, and I'll edit. There is an option to make it a group assignment. I got to pick one that I haven't graded yet. Give me a second.
Good.
So for example, for this particular one, we would say this is a group assignment. We would split it into okay. When you specify that it's a group assignment, you can choose to assign grades individually, or the default is that once I grade this, whatever grade I assign to the group, every student in the group gets.
Good. And I'd have to assign the students to the particular group. That
You
has to
you
be done.
can you can manually assign students to a group, or you could allow Canvas to automatically divvy them up based on the number of groups you want, or the maximum number of students you want. Okay. Other questions about what we covered in the grade book? So again, just a quick recap. It really starts with assignments. To set up your grade book, you want to make sure you create the groups or the categories that you want to use to organize those assignments. Once you've got those groups created, you want to make sure you save and publish the assignments so that the column will show up in the grade book. If you're going to do weighted grading, you want to make sure you assign the percentages to each of your groups. And if you've got rules in place, you want to get those rules set up so that Canvas can follow those when doing the calculations. And then again, that grade book is accessed via that grades link on the left-hand side. And you want to set the ability for late policies or automatically applying late deductions. You can do that in the settings. You can set that grade posting policy in the settings as well, or you can choose to do that on an individual basis by going to the individual assignment and setting the policy there. Any questions about what we covered?
No, thank you very much. Very helpful.
Oh, very glad. We will make sure that we get the recording link out to everybody once it's ready and available. Just a reminder that we are hosting drop-in sessions. I just want to say that today was the last Friday drop-in session. Going forward through the rest of the summer, we're holding them Monday through Thursday. And Monday and Wednesday, they're from, John, 2 to 3:30. Is that right? And Tuesday and Thursdays are 10:30 to 12?
You got it.
Okay.
Say that again, please, Twilly.
Sure. Monday and Wednesdays, the drop-in sessions are from 2 to 3:30 in the afternoon. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the drop-in sessions are 10:30 a.m. to 12 noon.
Okay. And what do we know? Do we know what you're going to cover?
Those drop-in sessions cover whatever questions you have. So those topics, it's whatever you bring to the table. So whatever questions you have about Canvas, you bring, and we do our best to get them answered.
Okay.
So when we get a little book here in color, means that that hasn't been graded.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Quayle, quick question for you. I know
Sure.
we have drop-in sessions that are set up through the summer up through I think August. Once the semester starts, if we have questions thereafter, are there going to be any drop-in sessions in the right in September when we get started, or late
I'm
August?
I'm almost positive. We just don't know whether we're going to keep the same time schedule.
That's okay. I just want to know that, because as we start setting all these things up or changing them around, then we may have some questions.
Absolutely.
We have an actual database to start with.
Yeah,
We're
we
also
will.
still waiting to hear where we will physically be at that point.
Yeah, aren't we all? Aren't we all?
Yeah, but to answer your question, we will be hosting them. We just can't tell you right now what days they will be, what times they will be, where they will be.
Yeah. Well, this is excellent, because at least now we kind of have an idea of what's out there, what's on the platform. So as we set it all up, we'll have our follow-up questions to ask you once we get it there.
Absolutely.
So, good. So thank you both, John and Quayle.